Mes pakalbėsim apie fondą, kuris finansuoja studentų išsilavinimą ir skatina karjeros galimybes. Fondas vadinasi CHANCEN ir tai yra Vokietijos studijų rinkai pritaikytas fondas. Teisingai?
Taip, Karoli. Jeigu trumpai apibendrinti greitai pristatymui paaiškinsiu, kad Vokietijoje yra daug tarptautinių universitetų, kurie turi programas dėstomas anglų kalba. Ir Vokietijos studijos tarptautiniuose universitetuose nėra pigios, ten metai gali kainuoti apie 9 000. Tai Vokietijoje stojant į tarptautinius universitetus yra galimybės, jeigu universitetai turi bendradarbiavimą su CHANCENu, yra galimybė gauti finansavimą savo studijom ypatingai palankiomis sąlygomis.
100% finansavimą.
100%, kuris dengtų pilnai visą studijų kainą ir kurio grąžinimo sąlygos išimtinai palankios yra. Gal paklausę truputėlį tos informacijos, suprasti iš esmės visą esmę to konceptų.
Taigi galite dabar kaip tik ir paklausyti apie finansavimą, apie studijų finansavimą Vokietijoje su CHANCENo fondu. Dėmesio į ekraną.
Hello everyone and welcome to our introduction video from us at CHANCEN. My name is Tom Green and I'm currently working in the student and alumni services at CHANCEN, and today I will be giving some context on who we are as a registered cooperative, what we stand for, where we came from, and of course what the income share agreement can offer you as a potential support for your studies in Germany. So firstly, at CHANCEN, we believe in equal opportunities for all, irrespective of your financial background. So we believe in free access to education, primarily meaning that you should be able to choose or to have the freedom to choose the right degree and the right university based on your passions, based on your field of interest, irrespective of your current financial situation. We also have a fair financing model. So this is the income share agreement, meaning that graduates who have an ISA with us do not have a fixed amount of debt. Repayments are a percentage of your income paid over a set number of years, but this is something that I can explain later. But this means that you can shape your career without having the additional financial pressure or burden of a fixed term loan. Now, we also have a solidarity-based community. So our graduates, so our income shareholders, our impact investors, our partner universities, our employees are all shareholders of CHANCEN and in a way united in the commitment to giving all students access to an ISA, giving them the freedom and the access to study at a university and afford, of course, the tuition fees. This is for the current generation, so potentially you, and of course, for the future generations, the people that will be studying in the years to come. So when I mean solidarity-based community, this also isn't just a self-label. This is also the form of our organization, in a sense. So the EG in CHANCEN stands for Eingetragene Genossenschaft, which, as I said earlier, you can translate it as a registered cooperative. And this is a legal structure and the legal structure of CHANCEN. This means that whoever has a share or an equity within CHANCEN, so all of the people I mentioned before, and potentially you as an ISA holder, would have an equal stake as a shareholder. This also means that when we make decisions, for example, at our annual general meeting every year, and we make important decisions about the direction of CHANCEN, then you would have an invitation to this meeting, and you would also have the opportunity to exercise your democratic right. As a shareholder in CHANCEN, not only do you get your democratic right to decide how we run CHANCEN, but you also have, of course, the right to sell your shares after the income share agreement is over. And also, of course, should we ever, as a registered cooperative, decide to issue dividends or profits of CHANCEN, then it would also go to our shareholders and inherently our income share agreement holders. So where did this all begin? So in 2016, Olaf and Florian founded CHANCEN. Now, before they founded CHANCEN, they also financed their studies through an income share agreement at a university in northwest Germany, the University of Witten-Herdecke, where the student union, the Studierendengesellschaft of, so student union in English, they established the income share agreement in around 1995. Olaf and Florian also studied with an ISA, and then upon their graduation, they took the income share agreement alongside in partnership with the Studierendengesellschaft University Witten-Herdecke, and of course with impact investing and capital from the GLS Bank and the subsidiary of the GLS Bank, which is one of the biggest ethical banks in Germany, and its subsidiary GLS Treuhand, and this is where CHANCEN was born. So fast forward 5 years, and we currently have around 35 partner institutions within Germany and the European Union, and it is very consistently growing. So Flo and Olaf, they also had the opportunity to study without this financial burden, and they wanted to take this model and make it into a scalable object, and now we have CHANCEN. It's not just within Europe that we're operating. So since July 2018, we also offer the ISA in Rwanda. We have a non-profit subsidiary, CHANCEN International, and we are currently funding around 1,500 students at 2 institutions in Rwanda, with the plan over the next 4 years to also expand into different countries within the African continent. So as I said, we are growing, and we're not just focused around Europe, but we also want to take our scope onto an international scale. So enough about where we came from and what we stand for. Let's get into the income share agreement itself. So as you can see from this visualization here, the numbers here represent years, and the pillars represent the payment to CHANCEN or you studying at your chosen university. So the pillars in orange represent us, CHANCEN, paying for your tuition fees in advance directly to the partner institution. So we wouldn't pay that money to you directly, it would go from us directly to the university. Now, in this case, in this example, the study years are 5, but this, of course, inherently depends on which program you choose. Some bachelors are 3 years, some are longer, and of course, this will impact the income share percentage and the number of repayment years, but we will get into this later. So the pillars in orange represent us supporting you during your studies, so you don't have to worry about the financial burden. Once you have finished graduating, that is when you enter the repayment phase. And the repayment phase will begin on the 1st of January on the following year that you graduate. So if you graduate in 2024, then the repayment phase would begin on the 1st of January 2025. Now, just because you enter the repayment phase does not necessarily mean that you start making payments back to CHANCEN. And the reason for that is because the repayment structure that we offer is 100% individual. And the reason for this is because you make income contingent repayments. As you can see here in year 6, there was no income. You see we have our minimum income threshold here. There was no income in year 6. Let's say you haven't found work in this year, or you decide to travel or do volunteering. If you don't have an income, or if you have an income under the minimum income threshold, then you would not be required to make any repayments back to us at CHANCEN. Now, should your income pass the minimum income threshold, that is when you would make repayments to us. And as I said, it is always based on your income. So, I mean, in contrast to a standard loan, there isn't really a high risk of being faced with the burden of a fixed debt or being restricted by, let's say, rigid repayment plans, because should your income be lower than the threshold, then as you can see here, and also in year 11 and year 12, the repayments are immediately paused. So, going into the ISA in a bit more detail, the income share agreement itself is 25 years in duration. However, once you meet a certain number of repayment years, and when I mean repayment year, I mean a year where you're earning over the minimum income threshold and you're making repayments to CHANCEN, then the income share agreement is also terminated. Now, on the one hand, with this concept, you have the social safeguard. As you can see here, there is 0% repayment obligation should you never meet our minimum income threshold. After 25 years, all obligations are terminated. Now, on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, let's say you graduate and you enter a career or a profession where your income is significantly higher than the average. Well, that's when we have our 200% repayment cap. This basically means that you will never pay more than 200% than the original sum that CHANCEN has supported you by. And I will go into more detail in this later. But this also means that if you find yourself in a high income profession, then you don't run the risk of paying copious amounts of money back to CHANCEN because we always hit that 200% repayment. So these are some ISA examples, the conditions that are taken from some of our university bachelor programs from our partner institutions. So just to give you some examples here, we have a various selection of bachelors, BAs or BScs, and let's say your chosen program had an amount of 24,840 euros. The repayment years would be 8 years. So once you hit the minimum income threshold, after 8 repayment years, the income share agreement would be over. And the income share of your salary would be 12%. Now, these conditions here, as you can see, they're all varying. These are not just random conditions that we think of. We have an entire research team which dedicates their working time to calculating these conditions. They do their research from various sources, statistics from universities, also statistics from governments in Germany, and they make their analysis and take factors into account, such as average salary, for specific degrees after graduation, everything from living expenses and living costs to regions in Germany and within Europe. And with all of this data in mind, this is where we get our calculations from. Now, the income threshold, the minimum income threshold that I've said many times, is 27,000 euros gross. So if your income will exceed 27,000 euros, then your active repayment starts. Now, what do I mean by income? I've probably said this word income 20 times already. So we define income in the exact same way that the German financial authorities or the Finanzamt defines income. So it's anything that can be defined as positive income according to the German tax authorities, and this is including but not limited to your gross income, so income from employment or self-employment, any capital gains, so money from stocks or shares or cryptocurrencies, any income from rent or property, and so on and so forth. So you would be, once you enter the repayment period, you would be required to submit your proof of income via our repayment portal. and then we would take that and make our calculations based on your proof of income. Now, your proof of income is always done through a tax return. Whether or not you're living in Germany or in a different country, you would submit a tax return every year. It's also a requirement as part of the income share agreement, and then we would make our calculations that way. Now, we also make our own deductions of your income before your income is calculated by us. So we, on average, deduct 9% of income-related expenses from your income before making our repayment calculations. So it's 27,000 euros as the minimum gross income threshold, plus 9%. And if you're self-employed, we also understand that there are more expenses, of course, being self-employed, and sometimes more tax expenses. So we also add an additional 16.4% on top of that 9%. So even though the minimum income threshold is usually 27,000 euros, or is 27,000 euros gross, it's actually higher after we make these deductions. The examples are exactly the same for our boot camps. So we also offer the income share agreement for boot camps. So a boot camp is, or can be considered as, an intensive crash course, which is anything from 9 to 12 weeks full-time and 24 weeks part-time. And the repayment years, of course, the overall sum is less for the funding amount. So repayment years are also reduced to 5 years. And we have an income share percentage with a university degree or without a university degree. And the income share percentage is calculated differently with or without a university degree. So it's actually lower with a uni degree because, of course, salaries statistically, generally speaking, are higher with a higher educational degree at entry level post bootcamp. But the other factors, so the repayment years and the funding amount, the concept of the ISA remains the same. So what are the advantages for you? Well, of course, during your studies, there are no collateral or guarantors needed for you to have an income share agreement. As I said at the beginning, we consider your application irrespective of your financial background. At the same time, CHANCEN, I mean, we're not a loan provider, we're not a bank, and it's not a scholarship. So the ISA is compatible with BAföG and other scholarships. Now, of course, when you graduate, you also have the full flexibility of entering repayment based on your income. And of course, something that I didn't mention earlier, if you are living and working in Germany, there is the possibility of claiming up to 1/3 of the repayment sum under your tax return. Now, as a disclaimer, this is the current regulations and the current possibilities under German taxation law. This is, of course, not applicable to other jurisdictions and other countries for doing your tax return. And of course, it's not set in stone. It could be subject to change. But as it stands now, it is possible to submit your repayments to us at CHANCEN under educational expenses in your tax return, and you can claim up to 1/3 back in a tax rebate, which is quite attractive when comparing to other financial supports available for tuition fees. So let's actually show you some repayment examples. So as I said before, let's imagine that you study at a university and it costs you 24,840 euros for the 100% tuition fee, and the income share percentage is 12%. So as you can see here, this is a concrete repayment example. You have your income in year one. Example one is you being employed. In year one, your income is 36,000 euros gross. Now your repayment would be 12% of your income, which in this case is 3,931 euros. If you are living and working in Germany and then you do your tax return, you would get approximately a tax benefit of just under 1,200 euros, and then in essence, your effective repayment would be 2,740 euros from the original 3,931 euros that you make to us at CHANCEN. Now, as you can see here, as your repayments increase, so does your repayments to CHANCEN, because it is always, of course, income contingent. Now, for whatever reason, like in this example here, in year 4 and year 5, you are no longer earning, you decide to take sabbatical, then your repayments would immediately be paused. And then year 6, in this example, repayments resume, because the income then goes up actually to 45,000 euros. Thus then you make your repayments based on the income share percentage back to us at CHANCEN. So in theory, if you earn more money upon your graduation, you pay more money back to us at CHANCEN. If you earn less, then you pay less money back, or none at all. And this is, as I mentioned earlier, based on our solidarity model. This is what the solidarity community stands for. And with this shared income share repayments, it gives us the ability to distribute risk, thus giving us the opportunity to give the income share agreement to everybody within our eligibility criteria, irrespective of financial background. Now, example 2 is exactly the same in the sense that the income is income contingent repayments, which are based, and the income share agreement works in the exact same way. But as I said earlier, if you are self-employed, then we deduct 9% anyway for all income share agreement holders from your income. But if you're self-employed, then it's a higher deduction on top of that, which is 16.4%. So in essence, your repayments would actually be, or your minimum income threshold would actually be much higher. The same goes to show for boot camps, with 5 repayment years for boot camps and 8 repayment years for bachelor degrees. So in this example, it is a 7,500 euro course with a 5.6% income share with a university degree. So as you can see in year 1, the income is 28,000 euros. Now, because we make our 9% deduction, this is actually not meeting our minimum income threshold. So in this example, in year 1, repayments were not obligated. And then, of course, once the minimum income threshold hits, that's when repayments will begin. After 5 repayment years, the income share agreement is over. So what does this mean for you? Well, as I said earlier, one of our values is fair financing. So a part-time salary will not be projected to a full-time salary. Of course, as I said earlier, we make our income-related expenses, make our 9% deductions. We make our 16.4% deductions. On top of that, if you are self-employed, and you being a shareholder, the financial model is owned by you. You have your voting right. Every year, you have your share and your equity within CHANCEN. The money that you make and repay back to CHANCEN is then filtered into our capital and then directly paying for the next generation of students, just like you, who want an income share agreement to study in Germany. So it's also going to a social impact as well. So how do you apply? You can apply directly on our website. You can hand in your documents, your CV, your high school diploma and certificates, motivation letter. We would then invite you to an interview. There would be approximately a 60-minute conversation between you and one of our team members in the student and alumni services at CHANCEN. We would get to know you a bit better based on your application. We would ask, do you fit to our CHANCEN community? This is also very important to us. And then we would make our financing decision and share the contract with you. And then you would, of course, join our solidarity-based community. you can go to our website, and these are the documents that we need, and you can ask yourself the questions: why do you want to study at your chosen institution? Why this degree? We check for your motivation and your informedness on the application criteria. And as I said earlier, we check if you fit with our solidarity model. Now, we do also have an eligibility currently. So the age threshold for an income share agreement at our partner institutions is 40 years for a bachelor, 43 years for a master, or 45 years old for a boot camp. And we currently have a list of supported nationalities, which is something that we're always trying to expand. Now, should your nationality not fit this criteria here, then all other nationalities would be eligible if you fulfill 2 out of the 3 criteria. You have a residence permit in Germany, you have already a German educational degree, or a schooling degree in Germany, or you have relevant professional experience related to your studies. For more information, of course, you can go to our website, chancen.eg.de, and of course, you can email us at any time. As I said before, my name is Tom. I am always available. Should you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email. Other than that, we hope you found this presentation insightful, and we are very much looking forward to hearing from you and maybe even receiving your application. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the educational fair. Bye-bye.
Kartu su Nerijum Leškiu, kalba studijų užsienį vadovų Lietuvai, sėdim čia ir toliau šnekam apie studijas užsienyje. Nerijau, turi įžvalgų apie tai, ką tik girdėjome apie CHANCEN EG fondą ir jo naudas?
Tai iš esmės, Karoli, labai trumpą apibendrinimą, kad iš esmės fondas tai nėra bankas, tai yra organizacija, kuri siekia, kad kiekvienas turėtų vienodas galimybės įgyti aukštąjį mokslą. Ir jeigu įdėmiai klausėt, tai tikrai pati struktūra, kaip yra teikiamas finansavimas, gali būti pilnai padengta visa studijų kaina ir grąžinimų sąlygos priklauso po to nuo darbų, nuo pajamų. Jeigu to laikotarpį žmogus nedirba, tai tuo metu nereikia mokėti. Sąlygos tikrai yra fantastiškos ir jeigu norėsit daug detalesnės informacijos ir gauti tą paaiškinimą iš tikrųjų, kaip veikia principas, ką reikia kalbėti interviu metu, nes yra interviu gaunant šitą finansavimą, tai drąsiai kreipkitės į kalbos studijų koordinatorius, kurie absoliučiai visais šitais klausimais jums pagelbės ir duos tokį pilną supratimą, kaip veikia visa ta CHANCENų pagalba studijų metu.